All right, so we had some people struggling with the Learning Target 4 practice, so I'm going to go over these and walk you through them, and that way if you have any questions, you can take a look at them before you start on the review tomorrow. So our first one here, we know when we are dividing, we are going to subtract the exponents. Well, when I subtract those exponents, I end up with a negative exponent. And you can't leave a negative exponent. So I think of it like there's a 1 underneath there, like it's written as a fraction, because any number can be written as a fraction. I need to move anything that has a negative exponent to either the bottom if it's on the top or the top if it's on the bottom. So in this case it's on the top, so I'm going to move it down. So my final answer, when I do that, my exponent is able to become positive, and my final answer is 1 over a to the third. On my one right next door, that same concept applies where I'm dividing, so I'm going to subtract the exponents. So 4 to the 0 power, which is 1, because anything to the 0 power we found out is 1. Our next problem here, it's already a negative 4, so once again, think of it as a fraction. I'm going to move it to the bottom, and when I move it to the bottom, the exponent becomes positive. And we looked at why this works the way it works. If you remember, I'll go back to, don't remember, I'll go back to this one. It's a times a times a times a times a over 8 of them I think I got those right. So when I go back to cancel them out, I see that I have 3 of them left, but they're on the bottom. Now when I cancel those out, that doesn't become a 0, it becomes a 1. And so I end up with 1a to the third. So that is how we got there, and that's the same thing that's going on here. We just start drawing it all out. Number 4a and 4b threw some people, so let's take a look at those. We've got, alrighty, so we have a negative number and it's to a negative exponent. So that the main thing is this base is not going to change. So when I distribute that out, and if there was more than one term in there, I would distribute it to every single term in there, but I've got negative 3 to the negative second power. I can't have a negative exponent, so I'm going to move it down to the bottom. And I can simplify that. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. On the one below that, I can also just go ahead and start and think, oh, this is 1 over negative 3 to the positive third, like so. And I'm going to end up with a negative 27 as my denominator. Our next one, I've got whole number coefficients, and I've got the variable y. So I'm going to split them apart. I'm going to think of 10 divided by 2 as 5. And then I've got my y to the 5th, and I'm going to do y to the 5th divided by y to the 10th, which means it's going to be 5 minus 10. I can think of that as being over top of 1. Well, my next step here, I'm going to get 5y to the negative 5th. Now, I'm not going to move the 5 down. The 5 doesn't have a negative exponent. I'm only going to move the y because the y has a negative exponent. So when I move that down to the bottom, I'm still going to have a 5 in the top and a y to the 5th on the bottom. Same thing works if I'm multiplying. Remember, when I'm multiplying with the same base, I'm going to add those exponents. So negative 7 plus 3 gives me x to the negative 4th. Think of it as over top of a 1. I move it down, and I get 1 over x to the 4th. Continuing on down here, I've got the numbers 15 and 3, so I can once again think of that as 5, and I can think of it as 5 over 1 if I need to. And then I've got b, so b minus b to the negative 4th power and I'm going to subtract 3. Well, negative 4 minus 3 is going to give me a 5b to the negative 7th over 1. Once again, the 5 does not have a negative exponent, only the b does. So the 5 is going to stay up top, while the b to the 7th moves to the bottom. On the next one, when I reduce that, and then I get y to the 5 minus 5 and x to the 3 minus a negative 2. So think about what's happening there. This is going to become y to the 0, x to the 5th power over 4. Remember, y to the 0 power is just 1. So that would be 1 times that, which we just write as x to the 5th over 4. Next problem here. Once again, reducing. And then I have y to the negative 3rd minus 4, which equals y. I'm multiplying it times 1. I don't necessarily need that, but I can keep it there. This is what's moving down, so I'm going to end up with a 1, 7y to the 7th. Our next one here, I'm going to simplify. I'm raising this to the power, but I'm going to simplify everything inside first because parentheses before exponents. So I can do that. So I'm going to go 6, 2, so I'm going to make that a 3. And then I'm already seeing that this is negative, and so I'm just going to go ahead and move it down. Alphabetical order. And now I'm going to go back and take care of the fact that I'm raising all of that to the 3rd power. When I then do that, I need to make sure that I raise everything inside to the 3rd power. So that's going to be 3 to the 3rd power, w squared times 3, and y to the 5th times 3. So I'm going to get a 27 on top, and then I'm going to get w to the 6th, y to the 15th on the bottom. Next one, I'm going to do the same thing. This time I will get 1/5, and then I'll have h to the 2 minus 3. Well, that's 1 times h to the negative 1 over 5. Remember, all of this still eventually is going to get raised to that 4th power, so don't lose that. I notice that this is negative, so I'm going to move it down here. So I get 1 over 5h. Because it'd be h to the 1st power, but I just don't write that. Now I got to do this to the 4th power. 1 to the 4th power, 5 to the 4th power, and h to the 4th power. Well, 1 to the 4th power, 5 to the 4th power, and h to the 4th power simplifies to 1 over 625h to the 4th. Next, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say, well, this is like w to the negative 4 minus a negative 2 all over top of 2. Well, this ends up becoming addition, so negative 4 plus 2, so I get w to the negative 2 over 2. I'm like, oh wait, look, that's negative. Let's go ahead and move it. So I get 1 over 2w squared, and then I got to take all that to the 5th power. So I get 1 to the 5th power over 2 to the 5th power, and then w squared, multiplying that. So I get 1 over 32 w to the 10th power. The ones on the back are challenge questions. There is an answer key here in the classroom that you can use. It just takes them a step further. I'm going to go ahead and pass that out to there first. So I get 1/5 to the negative 6. So I'm going to pass out that negative 6. So I get 1 to the negative 6 over 5 to the negative 6. Oh my god, that's negative and that's positive, so I'm just going to flip-flop them. So I get 5 to the 6th over 1 to the 6th. Now you could do 5 to the 6th. You don't really need to do that. You can just think of it as 5 to the 6th. It would give you a pretty big number. That's the same kind of thing we have going on down here. These other ones you can see are similar to ones that we had on the front. Let me know if you have any questions when I return.